Welcome back, everybody, to another terrifying prison reality check episode of Lockdown 23 and 1. That's right, today we're going to be speaking about an inmate that lost his life in a very gruesome way inside of an Oklahoma prison. The ones that have been here for a while already know we've covered a ton of wild stories coming from prison and jail. But this one right here is in the top 10 of unbelievable. And you know, it really made me think about my situation in prison. I'll speak about that here in a second. But first, as always, if you're new to the channel and enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave. And check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Alright, so before I read this article, let me clarify something that I said in the intro. I said a terrifying prison reality check. But this one's not coming from prison. I saw the location, Lawton, Oklahoma, and thought instantly of the prison that's out there. So, my apologies. This inmate's death is actually coming from Comanche County Detention Center. Anybody been locked up there? Let me know how it is in the comment section below. But the victim's name was Terry Dorrell, and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations is calling his death suspicious. Yeah, I think after reading this, I'd say so as well. 7 News had the opportunity to speak with the mother, Vicky Dorrell.
To identify him, they had to use his fingerprints and his DNA. So I don't know how badly he was beaten, but shame on them people. I mean, that was my son. That was my baby. And shame on Oklahoma. Shame on the state. Shame on the detention center for not protecting him. He was doing everything right here. He was doing everything right. And because he owed $5,000, then you let somebody kill him while he's there with you. This is on them. He was your responsibility.
Picture that. Delinquent fines got him transported back to Oklahoma and killed inside the cell block in a gruesome way. She said that he was only housed at CCDC for 10 days before he lost his life. How does something like that happen? I can't even fathom that. Going in and out of jail on a regular basis in the high security blocks. I can't fathom myself dying within 10 days of entering jail. Right? That ain't enough time to run up a debt. Nothing. If you were to ask me, they just randomly picked this dude, which blows my mind because some of the details here is going to shock you even more about the individual, Terry. Vicky Dorrell or Dorrell, I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but she says she just does not know what could have gone wrong. And when she last spoke to her son, he gave her no indication that there was even a problem. She said, I talk to him every day. In my last conversation, I told him, Bubba, quit calling me so much.
Talk to him every day. My last conversation was, I said, Bubba, quit calling me so much. You've called 4 times today. I said, I just put money on your phone. I said, and you're going to blow it all up in one day. I said, quit calling. You don't need to call me 4 times. No, he never said anything. And he would have told me if he was scared or which he would have told me if he felt threatened or he would have.
And you know, I hate to say it, but if I were a dad and said that to him and found out something like this happened shortly after, man, it would break my heart, you know, thinking that I tried to limit his phone calls. I'm not trying to put, you know, the mother down in any way, shape, or form. She's already in a horrible situation. I'm just putting myself in her shoes. It's heartbreaking, right? You don't expect things like this to happen. Now, keep this in mind. You know, a lot of people coming into jail and prison, you know, they'll probably look at the small guy as the easy victim. But think again, sometimes it doesn't matter who you are. Size, reputation, none of that matters. Especially the gangs. Vicky says that her son was not a small person, standing at 6'3". Terry was huge. And he wasn't a novice when it came to being behind bars. He had already served 14 of a 25-year sentence for car theft. Survived prison without any issues, well, at least major health issues. He came out, he was still alive. 10 days into jail and he's done. 6'3" with a reputation and knowing how to do time. He's done 14. I'm sure he'll see some of the same faces if he were to go back. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. Oklahoma snatched him up for some fines and an inmate snatched his life while he was waiting to pay him. Let that sit in. From her son's own mouth, he said, Mama, this is not the same detention center it used to be. And that's another huge point I want to break down to y'all, man. When I was in prison or jail, you could see a cell block flip in an instant. You could be in a block gambling, making money, everybody laughing, and then next thing you know, one inmate comes in. And now you're looking behind your back wondering if you're going to be the next one to get killed or stabbed, jumped, whatever the case is. It can change up in an instant. What do you think's going to happen? When you leave the system for years, when you come back, chances are the people in it and the way of life is almost going to be completely different from what you witnessed. But who knows? You know, you could go back and it could be much easier. It just depends. It says according to his autopsy, he suffered over 30 stab wounds. Just 10 days into his jail sentence for fines, and he stabbed over 30 times. Further detailed in Terry's medical examiner report explains his body arrived in bloody, soaked clothes. Can you imagine the scene in the cell block with all that? His life ended in one of the most horrific ways. According to the incident report, around 7:15 p.m., inmates inside the same pod as Terry were calling out to officers yelling, "Man down." Man down is a typical universal word for someone who's probably dead or needs medical attention immediately. Heart attack, seizure, something like that. Inmates, believe it or not, will try to help. I've screamed "man down" numerous times throughout my life. But some of those guys, unfortunately, they didn't make it. Now, over an hour earlier, inmates covered the camera reportedly because the TV wasn't working, and they started kicking the door. One of the inmates the officer encountered, Tawan Richardson, was also one of the inmates involved in the hostage situation that took place at the beginning of 2024. Why is he even in a general population setting to begin with? Homeboy should be on 23 and 1 for like the next 5 years at least, taking hostages. Maybe he wasn't the main culprit and they felt like he was safe to put around others, you know? I don't know. Either way, homeboy was just there for some fines around individuals like that. See, the COs be taking the bulk of the blame for all this stuff, not making their rounds on time. But you know what? It's classification putting people into the wrong tanks, man. And COs are out there transferring people and working triple time because of it. I'm trying to tell you, it's a process to these things. You got to back it all the way up to the beginning of their housing in prison or jail, all right? Classification. If they're going by a strategic procedure like, you know, they do in the courtroom with the point system, pre-sentence report, PSI, whatever, then they need to change it some way because too many people been dying. Way too many short-timers been getting housed with lifers, all right? If I were to make a change in the prison system, I'd start with classification. You have to do a deeper dive sometimes. But that's about the bulk of it, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I don't know much about Terry, but I can tell that he was loved by his mama. It's breaking her heart, and if I were to guess, other family members as well. So my condolences go out to all of them and the friends and anybody locked up in Oklahoma or anywhere across the country. Be careful. Watch your P's and Q's. And ladies and gentlemen, if your loved one is locked up, let this be a rude awakening. It could be their last day. Always make sure you end that phone call with a little bit of love. But, like I said, it doesn't matter how much time you've done or how big you are. You're not bigger than the game, that's for sure. You can get got at any given time, behind bars or out here in the streets. Let this be a rude awakening to anybody out there committing dirt in Oklahoma. Your little 10-day sentence could be your last days on earth. I'm out of here though, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new to the channel and enjoy, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave. And as always, until the next time, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free.